Hello, listeners. Welcome back. Today we're diving into the eye-opening book, Gladio, NATO's Dagger at the Heart of Europe, the Pentagon-Nazi-Mafia Terror Axis by Richard Cottrell, a book that explores the West's use of clandestine forces. Let's start with how the West employed its own form of terrorism for decades in the West, known as the strategy of tension. This is a tactic used to manipulate public opinion and political landscapes. This strategy often involved false flag operations, where acts of terrorism were either orchestrated or allowed to happen to create a climate of fear and justify authoritarian measures. A prime example is the assassination attempt on Italian Prime Minister Aldo Moro. The book suggests that Moro's kidnapping and subsequent murder were orchestrated by a network of intelligence agencies and criminal elements, including the infamous P2 Masonic Lodge. The goal? To prevent Moro's proposed alliance with the Communist Party, which threatened the status quo. The book also explores the role of figures like General Lyman Lemnitzer, who was instrumental in setting up NATO's secret armies. Lemnitzer was a master of deception, involved in schemes like Operation Northwoods, which proposed staging acts of terrorism in the United States to justify a war with Cuba. His influence extended to Europe, where he oversaw operations that often involved ex-Nazis and fascist elements. The book highlights the role of psychological warfare in these operations. Colonel Edward Lansdale, a key figure in the CIA, was a pioneer in this field. He believed in using local customs and superstitions as weapons, and his tactics often bordered on the bizarre. For instance, he once had his men impersonate vampires to terrorize Filipino indigenous groups and anyone among them who may have joined the local communist rebels. Lemnitzer and Lansdale were part of a larger movement that believed in the use of extreme measures to combat communism. This included the use of ex-Nazis, who were seen as valuable assets in the fight against the Soviet Union. These figures were integrated into NATO's secret armies, often with the blessing of high-ranking officials. The strategy of tension often involved acts of terrorism that were either staged or allowed to happen to create a climate of fear. A notable example is the bombing of the National Agriculture Bank in Milan in 1969, which was orchestrated by the French terrorist Yves Guérin-Serac. This act was part of a larger plan to destabilize Italy and prevent a shift to the left. The book reveals the intricate connections between intelligence agencies, criminal organizations, and fascist elements in these operations. Yves Guérin-Serac is portrayed as a key figure in the strategy of tension. He was a former French officer who became a mercenary and terrorist, driven by a fanatical anti-communist ideology. The book describes how he set up Agente Press, a front organization that served as a hub for terrorist activities across Europe and beyond. Guérin-Serac's tactics involved infiltrating and manipulating left-wing groups to carry out acts of violence, which were then blamed on communists. The book delves into the complex relationship between French President François Mitterrand and the secret services. Mitterrand, who had a history of involvement with far-right groups, was no stranger to the dark underbelly of politics. The book suggests that Mitterrand was aware of, and possibly involved in, plots to assassinate General Charles de Gaulle. The attempted assassination at Petit Clamart in 1962 is discussed as a case in point. The book also highlights the role of figures like Jacques Foccart, who was a key player in the French secret services and had close ties to NATO. Foccart's influence extended to Africa, where he orchestrated coups and manipulated political landscapes to serve French interests. The assassination of Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme is another case explored in the book. The author suggests that Palme's murder was part of a larger conspiracy involving NATO and the CIA. The book reveals the deep connections between Swedish intelligence and Western agencies, and how these connections played a role in Palme's assassination. The book also discusses the role of figures like Francesco Guglino, a Danish-Italian suspected of being involved in Palm's murder. Guglino's connections to intelligence agencies and criminal organizations highlight the complex web of relationships that characterize the Gladio network. The murder of Bulgarian dissident Georgy Markov is another case that the book examines. The author suggests that Markov's assassination was part of a larger operation involving Western intelligence agencies. The book reveals the connections between Markov and Bulgarian intelligence, and how these connections made him vulnerable to manipulation and betrayal. The book delves into the world of organized crime and its connections to intelligence agencies. The author discusses the case of Roberto Calvi, known as God's banker, whose death was linked to a complex web of financial scandals involving the Vatican, the Mafia, and intelligence agencies. The book reveals the extent of corruption and manipulation that characterize this world. The author also discusses the role of figures like Licio Gelli, the head of the P2 Masonic Lodge, and his connections to the CIA and the Vatican. The book suggests that Gelli was a key player in the Gladio network, involved in a range of operations from assassinations to financial manipulation. The attempted assassination of Pope John Paul II is another case explored in the book. The author suggests that the attack was part of a larger conspiracy involving the CIA, the Bulgarian Secret Service, and the Turkish Mafia. The book reveals the connections between these groups and the complex web of relationships that characterize the Gladio network. The author also discusses the role of figures like Mehmet Ali Agca, the man who shot the Pope, and his connections to intelligence agencies and criminal organizations. The book suggests that Agca was a pawn in a larger game, manipulated by forces beyond his control. As we wrap up this episode, it's clear that the book offers a disturbing glimpse into the hidden forces that have shaped European history. The strategy of tension, the use of secret armies, and the manipulation of public opinion are all tactics that have been used to maintain power and control. The book serves as a reminder of the importance of transparency and accountability in government, and the dangers of allowing secrecy to shroud the actions of those in power. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the shadows of history. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and share, and remember, knowledge is power. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep shining a light on the truth. This has been a BrightLearn video from BrightLearn.ai on the book Gladio, NATO's Dagger at the Heart of Europe by Richard Cottrell. Visit BrightLearn.ai for more fascinating videos like this one, and naturalnews.com for full editorial coverage and breaking news on critical stories that keep you informed and aware of what's really going on.